Hi there. Well, on today's show, I want to take a look at some vaccine news that's going around, some diametrically opposed stories that are going on in different parts of the country. And I want to go ahead and start in New York. And this was from about a week ago, last Thursday. And we saw that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed legislation removing non-medical exemptions from school vaccination requirements. And it says Governor Andrew M. Cuomo today signed legislation sponsored by Senator Brad Hoylman and Assembly Member Jeffrey Dinowitz, removing non-medical exemptions from school vaccination requirements for children. And we get a quote from Governor Cuomo here. Quote, "The science is crystal clear. Vaccines are safe, effective, and the best way to keep our children safe. This administration has taken aggressive action to contain the measles outbreak, but given its scale, additional steps are needed to end this public health crisis," Governor Cuomo said. "While I understand and respect freedom of religion, our first job is to protect the public health, and by signing this measure into law, we will help prevent further transmissions and stop this outbreak right in its tracks." And then there's quotes from Senator Hoylman and Assembly Member Dinowitz also discussing this issue. So what does the bill say? Let's take a look. So the purpose of this bill, I'm up here, the purpose of this bill would repeal all non-medical exemptions from vaccination requirements for children. And the justification is based on existing New York state law requires all children in New York to receive certain immunizations for poliomyelitis, mumps, measles, diphtheria, rubella, Haemophilus influenza B, hepatitis B, and varicella or chickenpox. The law provides an exemption from the immunization requirements where a physician certifies that the immunization may be detrimental to a child's health. Now, according to the CDC, sustaining a high vaccination rate among school children is vital to the prevention of disease outbreaks, including the reestablishment of diseases that have been largely eradicated in the U.S., such as measles. Now, according to state data from 2013-2014, there are at least 285 schools in New York with an immunization rate below 85, including 170 schools below 70%. Far below the CDC's goal of at least 95% vaccination rate to maintain herd immunity. So that's the bill that was before the state assembly and before the legislature in New York. And this Washington Post report notes that now New York joins states such as California, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Maine by outlawing non-medical exemptions for vaccines. Several other states are deliberating whether to eliminate religious waivers for vaccines. So we got this big move going on in New York. Went through the legislature. The governor signed it. It is now law. So you have to be vaccinated to attend school. Then things are a little bit different in Texas, and we see this headline from the Texas Tribune, and it says, "Is Texas too lax? Vaccine exemptions reach all-time high." And it says, Texas medical experts fear that the state could see the next outbreak of vaccine-preventable disease. So far, Texas has seen 15 confirmed cases of measles in 2019, and that's 6 more than they saw all of 2018. Health officials are watchful and keeping an eye on pockets of Texas closely because of the number of parents requesting exemptions under Texas's broad vaccine exemption law. Texas is one of 16 states that allow parents to bypass vaccine requirements for enrolling their kids in school by claiming a conscientious exemption along with citing medical or religious concerns. And Texane's exemption law used to be stricter. In 2003, a state senator proposed loosening the restrictions via a 3-page amendment to a 311-page bill. After 5 minutes of discussion, the amendment was approved. The bill was soon signed into law. 16 years later, former state senator Craig Estes said the change to Texas's vaccine laws that he helped enact should be reviewed in the current public health climate. Quote, obviously we didn't ever imagine what would happen. Estes, a Republican from Prosper, told the Texas Tribune, with what's happened recently, I would encourage the legislature in the future to revisit that issue and debate it. So, right, so hindsight is 20/20, and at least Estes is doing the right thing now. The speedy way in which the Texas legislature weakened the state's vaccine exemption rules suggests that, like Estes, few in high office at the time thought it would put Texas at risk for future outbreaks. However, while experts suggest Texas is now vulnerable, efforts to change the exemption law have been dead on arrival in the capital. Quote, there will be a terrible measles epidemic in Texas, and children will be hospitalized in ICUs, just like they are in New York right now. This is Dr. Peter Hotez, the Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. That will wake up the state legislature to realize that there's a problem and close those exemptions. So, and Dr. Hotez has been on this for quite a while. I had him on the podcast several years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and on that particular podcast, he was predicting this kind of stuff would be going on in Texas around this time. So, kind of a crystal ball thing, but it doesn't take a crystal ball to figure that out. And if you want to check out Dr. Hotez's, my interview with him, look for the link down below and check that out. And then we have this story where anti-vax advocate Robert F. Kennedy met with Democratic Assemblywoman Autumn Burke in California and the actress Jessica Biel. Well, that started a little bit of a firestorm too. So Jessica Biel, facing criticism, explains why she opposes the California vaccine bill. So she went to this state capitol to voice her demonstration against this bill. So let's read on. Of course, her appearance at the state capitol with RFK Jr. sparked a real social media storm. Had she joined the lobbying campaign against the legislation right in the middle of a nationwide measles outbreak? On Instagram, Biel argued she was not an anti-vaxxer, but was opposing legislation to tighten up California immunization laws. I am not against vaccinations. I support children getting vaccinations, and I also support families having the right to make educated medical decisions for their children alongside their physicians. My dearest friends have a child with a medical condition that warrants an exemption from vaccinations, and should this bill pass, it would greatly affect their family's ability to care for their child in this state. And the bill she's talking about is the vaccine legislation, Senate Bill 276, which seeks to make it more difficult for doctors to grant exemptions to the state's immunization requirements, giving the state more control over such decisions. And the bill's author is well-known vaccine proponent, Senator Richard Pan, who has claimed that unscrupulous doctors are granting exemptions for profit and under pressure from influential individuals. So, of course, Biel got lambasted, not surprisingly. Even fellow comedians and other celebrities went after her. Comedian Jen Kirkman harshly criticized Biel in a tweet. People are dying due to anti-vaxxers, and your ignorance will contribute to that death toll. Let me talk a little bit about the bill. Okay, so California had some of the strictest childhood vaccination laws in the country, requiring immunizations to attend public or private schools. A doctor can excuse a child from some or all vaccinations if there is a medical reason to do so, but questions have been raised about whether some doctors are improperly approving these exemptions. So under Pan's bill, the California Department of Health would decide whether the underlying condition cited by a doctor in a medical exemption meets the criteria set by the CDC. The vaccination proposal has already triggered heated and emotional debates in the state capitol and is now in the assembly for consideration. So we got this news coming out of New York, possibly a crisis we see brewing in Texas, and then we got this stuff going on at the state capitol in California. And just to give you an idea where we're at right now, from January 1st to June 13th of this year, 1,044 individual cases of measles have been confirmed in 28 states. This is an increase of 22 cases from the previous week, and this is the greatest number of cases reported in the U.S. since 1992, and since measles was declared eliminated in 2000. So clearly, there's a lot of states out there that are really trying to tighten up their vaccination, because some of them are really getting blasted with vaccine preventable diseases, like New York. And so I think New York made the right move. And we'll see where these things go. We'll be keeping an eye on Texas, see how bad things get there. We'll be keeping an eye on California and the Senator Pan bill, and see where that goes, and see where the state legislature wants to move, if they want to move to more stricter vaccination laws in the state. And lastly, I just want to talk about a pet peeve of mine, and that's when people write stories about infectious diseases and they get the organisms wrong, and this kind of bothers me. So I just wanted to point out something. I saw this story, and it's from the Advocator. I guess it's a Canada website. 6 infectious viruses almost eliminated in the world. And I noticed this is very close to a Science Direct article that I saw recently too. Very similar. And the author goes through and starts listing the different diseases, rightly. Smallpox, right? Polio, that's a virus disease that's close to being eliminated. Then you get down here to diphtheria. Diphtheria virus impacted over 200,000 people in 1921. Well, what's wrong with that picture? Diphtheria is not a virus. It is a Corynebacterium diphtheria is a bacteria. So, yeah, just a pet peeve, and I just wanted to point it out that this stuff happens in articles from time to time. And it says here that the author is a senior fellow at the Schuster Institute of Investigative Journalism, a meticulous researcher. Well, okay. Anyway, just pet peeve, and I just couldn't let that go. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this news about the different vaccine issues going on around the country. And if you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like the video, and give us a comment below and let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time on the next Infectious Disease News Brief.
And don't forget to check us out at the website, outbreaknewstoday.com, the podcast, Outbreak News Interviews, which can be found on the website, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and Spotify, and the Outbreak News This Week radio show, which is aired Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time in the Tampa Bay area on AM 1380 The Biz, or online streaming at 1380thebiz.com. And check out our social media presence, Facebook at Infectious Disease News, and Twitter at BackDman63. Outbreak News TV is a production of The Global Dispatch. Copyright The Global Dispatch Incorporated, 2019.